This is the end of privacy in the United States and beyond. H.R. 8250, the so-called Parents Decide Act, is a bipartisan bill proposed by New Jersey Democrat Josh Gottheimer and New York Republican Elise Stefanik that wants to force every operating system provider to verify the age of any user before you can even set up or use the OS. It sounds like it's just about protecting kids online, but when you read the details, it gets terrifying for privacy, anonymity, and the entire open source world. Today I'm breaking it down, why this is a terrible idea, what it really means for your PC, your Linux distro, and even your smart fridge. Stay tuned until the end, where I'll give you a list of the distros that are outright saying no and what you can do about it as well. The bill was introduced on April 13th, 2026 and has been referred to the House Committee on Energy and Commerce. In simple terms, it requires OS providers, think Microsoft, Apple, Google, and yes, even Linux distributions, to verify the date of birth of every single user before they can use the operating system, and if the user is under 18, a parent or legal guardian has to verify it too. And here's the part that should scare you. OS providers would also have to develop a system to allow an app developer to access any information as is necessary, collected by the operating system to verify the date of birth of a user of that app. In other words, any program on your PC could potentially access the birth date you entered into the OS. If you're not scared yet, you should be. Not later than 180 days after the bill is enacted, regulators would have to figure out how an operating system provider can verify the date of birth of a parent, legal guardian, or an adult user acting on their own behalf, the data protection standards to make sure the date of birth is collected securely and not stolen or breached, and crucially, how to let app developers access that information from the OS. Notice something? They're saying implement the law first, figure out how to make it actually work later. That's backwards and reckless. And I bet you anything it was done on purpose. This has huge privacy implications. To verify your age, you'll almost certainly have to hand over some form of identification to your operating system. Think driver's licenses, passports, birth certificates. Where will all this data be held? Will it actually be secure? A single data breach could dox millions of people, including children, and send their personal information straight to the dark web. Here's a short list of some of the most profound government data breaches to date. In 2020, the SolarWinds Orion breach. Hackers breached US government computers by exploiting a software update, gaining access to emails and confidential documents across multiple agencies. The voter database exposure from 2015 to 2017, misconfigured servers exposed personal data of roughly 191 to 198 million American voters, including addresses and political leanings. State-level incidents in 2023. In 2023, 137 cases of government data breaches were recorded in the US, with California having 16 and Texas 8, according to Statista.com. The OPM data breach of 2015, the Office of Personnel Management breach resulted in the theft of sensitive background investigation records for over 21 million federal employees and contractors. Attacks have hit critical departments including the U.S. Treasury and Commerce Departments. The U.S. Postal Service and NOAA also reported breaches. Investigations have also linked multiple attacks on U.S. and foreign governments to state-sponsored actors, including Russian and North Korean groups. If they can't even keep this kind of data safe, how are we supposed to trust that our personal information won't be leaked right under our noses? Think about the marketing angle too. Once companies know exact ages, targeted advertising to kids becomes even more precise and invasive. This law doesn't protect children. It has the potential to exploit them even more. And it gets worse. This isn't just about Windows and Mac OS. What about Linux? What about smart appliances that run their own operating systems? Calculator apps, servers running Linux all over the world, the computer in your car. Will every one of them need to age verify their users? How in the world is this even going to be implemented? This feels like the end of anonymity as we know it. If even Linux is forced to track you the way Windows and Mac already do, privacy on personal computers could be dead. VPNs would likely become heavily restricted or effectively outlawed under rules like this. The people pushing this bill seem to have no real understanding of how operating systems and open source software actually work. It feels like they just want your data and maybe something more. I'm not trying to go full conspiracy mode here, but something about this doesn't feel right. Are there deeper motives here beyond protecting children? As it turns out, yes, there are. Meta and Google are both lobbying, spending millions of dollars to see this bill and bills like this passed. According to techoversight.org, Meta, Google, and other big tech companies are playing a shameless, cross-country blame game with warring age verification proposals as they try to pass the buck to one another while actively opposing broad bipartisan efforts to protect kids online. Although it may be refreshing to see big tech lobbyists fight each other instead of innocent kids, seniors, and veterans, for a change, the fact that companies like Meta secretly fund groups and refuse to answer questions about it means lawmakers and advocates need to stay alert to hidden agendas being pushed by big tech to derail real accountability. Here's what I see coming. A huge subset of users will actively try to skirt this law. We're already seeing operating systems ditch System D partly because of concerns like this. Many distros are taking a hard stance. They will not comply. We are entering the era of compliant versus non-compliant Linux distributions. Will the government straight up outlaw non-compliant distros? Will there be fines for individuals who download rebel software? Could having the wrong OS on your device become a federal offense? Will we see FBI warnings on startup screens in the future? Most Linux distros are maintained by volunteers as passion projects. Before, when it was state by state, they could just stop distributing in places like California. Now it's federal. Many won't be able to comply without shutting down entirely. This is completely insane. Here's a list of distros that have already stated they will not comply with age verification requirements: Omarchy Linux, Adenix, GNU Linux, Artix Linux, Graphene OS, Ageless Linux, and more are likely to join them. The resistance is real. Alright, so here's something you can actually do about it, like I promised in the beginning. So head on over to agelesslinux.org and you can go to distros here. And this will give you a list of all the distributions that are going to comply, have already complied, or will not comply with the age verification laws. You can see it's a pretty extensive list here. They also go into System D, User DB, and the XDG desktop portal here and what's going on with that. Here is the proposed code and interface, and if you continue to go down, you'll get more information on how to remove what they add. Here is the instructions and the code for Ubuntu GNOME. Here's the instructions for Debian. Here is the instructions for Fedora Anaconda. Here are the instructions for any distro right now. And here you have what Ageless Linux promises. You can also go to the State Laws tab at the top, and it will tell you what states have already complied, what states will comply, and what states will not comply. It's a pretty extensive list on agelesslinux.org, and it's pretty cool. Also, it's not just the United States. This has only been updated as of March, so you won't see the federal OS age verification law exactly in this website yet, but I'm pretty sure they're going to update it, so you will soon. Here you can see the lobbyists for and against these laws here. Here you can fax your representative, enter your address, and you can find your legislators right here. Very crucial data. Here you can download the code to convert any Linux system to Ageless Linux. I've tried it, it works on Linux Mint for sure. Ageless Linux is also selling hardware, devices made specifically to skirt and break this law. And here you have some of the citations. This is a great website for figuring out what distros will comply, who's behind this, what states and countries will comply or not comply, and you can even download the scripts here to turn any distribution into Ageless Linux. Something about this bill just doesn't sit right. The people pushing it either have no clue how computers and open source actually work, or they know exactly what they're doing. Either way, this is developing fast. I'll be following it closely and keeping you updated. What do you think? Is this a reasonable way to protect kids, or a dangerous overreach that kills privacy and open computing? Drop your thoughts in the comments. If you want more on this, hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next update. Share this with anyone who uses a computer because this affects all of us. Thanks for watching, and as always, I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.